Hi, BookTube. It's Lori, and I'm back today with my February TBR. I agonized over this month for some reason. I was completely indecisive, and I would write down some things I wanted to read, and then I would find something else, and then I would try to take something off the list. It just became crazier and crazier and crazier. So a lot of the books that are on my TBR for February were already books that I had put down and were pretty solid around. I agonized over, if you've watched the video of the revisit of February's book haul last year, I agonized over which one of those books to read, but I'm very happy, solidly definitive about that book, so I'm happy about that. And then there's a couple others that I haven't really talked about at all, so let's get started. Okay, so the first book is The Granchester Mysteries, which is a carryover from my January TBR. I do want to finish it. I wish I had the ability, without purchasing it, to listen to it on audio, but I'm going to keep looking. Possibly that's just I'm not looking in all the right places, but I'm enjoying it. I'm not quite halfway through. I'm not loving it so far, but I am enjoying it. And I do want to just continue to pick it up as I have free moments here and there. Or perhaps I'll just dedicate myself to a day of reading it on the weekend. So that's my January 2019 revisit book for January 2020 that I'm now revisiting in February. Separation Anxiety is by Laura Zigman. It's an advanced reader's copy that was sent to me that I think comes out early March. Yeah, I think it's March 3rd. So I started this just the other day, did a chapter try to make sure this is something I wanted to read in February, and it is. I like it already, and I'm just a little bit in. This follows a character named Judy who is divorced and has a teenage son and is recovering from the divorce and the grief over that, as well as trying to cope with the fact that she has a 13-year-old son. And one day she's cleaning out some things in the basement and she comes upon a baby sling that somebody had given her when her son was born and that she never used, and she puts it on and it feels quite comfortable to her. And then she tries to figure out what she could do with it, so to speak, and the dog is nearby, and she puts her Sheltie in the sling and she begins to carry the Sheltie around with her all the time. So far, it's pretty amusing, and yet just really a solid story, I think, that will grow as she grows and develops, and as her reasons for feeling the way she's feeling continue on. And just, I think it's going to be a super read. Laura Zigman wrote Animal Husbandry, which was very popular. Didn't write anything again for a really long time. So this is highly anticipated for fans of Animal Husbandry. I have not read that, but HarperCollins was kind enough to send this to me. And I think it'll be a quick read. It's not terribly long, and it's so far going pretty well. So in honor of February, I am going to, and in honor of the fact that I recently saw Little Women, I am choosing A Long Fatal Love Chase by Louisa May Alcott. Now you may be thinking, what? I've never heard of this. Neither had I until I acquired it. So this is a backlist choice for me. I've had it for at least a year, maybe a little bit longer. It was a book fair choice at my local library. This is a manuscript that was found later and was published by someone else after it was discovered. So this was published in 1995. A long-lost manuscript written by Louisa May Alcott. Perfect for February. I'm not sure that it has a happy love story ending, but it follows a character who falls in love, Rosamund Vivian, falls in love with a man named Philip Tempest, who seems really, really charming and wonderful. He's much older than she is, but she carries on a relationship and with Philip, and it doesn't sound like they get married. And so then she's caught up in this intrigue and deceit and betrayal, and she tries to get away from Philip. And this is the story of her journey to get away. Yeah. So again, not a typical Valentine's time read, but love the cover, love the premise, love the end papers at the top are a beautiful pink and decal edge. It's a pretty, pretty edition. I love it. And I think it's a great addition to my library forever. And I hope it's good. My February 2019 revisit, I went through the books that I hauled last February. And of those books, I chose The Cuckoo's Calling by Robert Galbraith. I cannot get this sticker off. I'm going to have to really play with this. Nevertheless, this is the one that I chose. This is a mystery. A lot of you commented and said that you were glad that I chose this and that you liked it, or that that's what you would have chosen too. So that was fun. It's a mystery, Cormoran Strikes, first in this Cormoran Strike series, written by J.K. Rowling, the pen name of Robert Galbraith. Follows Cormoran Strike. That name just makes me nuts. Cormoran Strike that is contacted by his friend John, who tells him that his sister fell to her death and that the police ruled it a suicide, but he doesn't think that it is. And then there's this, I guess, entry into this world of famous, rich socialites that Cormoran Strike is caught up in this whole scene, and I hear it's very well done. It's well paced. I will get through it, even though it is a good hefty book. It's not horribly hefty, but it's 450 pages or so. So I am looking forward to this, and I can also listen to this and read it on ebook from my library. So I'll have 3 ways of attacking it, so to speak, which is always good for me because then I can read it wherever I am, and that's always helpful. So that's that pick. You notice I'm still carrying on with my goals. My Advent pick for the Advent project that Megan and I did last December in 2019 is The Winter People by Jennifer McMahon. Now, I read The Invited last year by this author, and look, I have coupons in here from Christmas. That's fun. Last year, and I enjoyed that. So this one follows it's set in West Hall, Vermont. Sarah Harrison in 1908 was found dead in the field behind her house just months after her daughter Gertie was killed or died tragically. And so they believe there's a ghost that lives at West Hall, Vermont. And so fast forward to the present, some other people are living in this area, and they find a copy of Sarah's diary. And it tells them a lot of information about what was happening. And I've heard people love this book. The reason I'm choosing it in February is because it's probably the last cool month that we will have here. So it seems like a good winter read. It is still winter, so it seems like a good winter read to me. I have just been eyeing it and thinking about it. And if I love it, then I will, or even if I like it a lot, I will pick up the next one that I want to read, which is The Night Sister, which I've also heard good things about. All right, so I'm listening to An Edited Life by Anna Newton. I just started listening to this. I got it on Hoopla, which is from my other library, on audio. And it is a book that is fairly short and guides you through this way of sort of editing your life. So editing your stuff, editing your calendar, editing those other things in your life that are not maybe serving you in some way. So really kind of decluttering everything in a way. It's starting out, I mean, it's okay. I'm going to finish it. It's about 7.5 hours or so long to listen to, but it is lovely in the narration because the narrator, who I think is Anna, has a British, she's from England, so I love that accent, and I love listening to narrators from the UK, so that's nice. And I mean, I think it's okay. It's a good read. It's a lot of stuff I already know so far, but it's also stuff that even though I already know it, it's a good reminder for me to start to think about it. Like I was thinking today, she's talking about budgeting and looking at your expenses and what you spend. And I realized I hadn't done my business budget for the year, for my business, for my company. So I need to get on that. I mean, it is February and most of my expenses are somewhat fixed, but I've already spent some money on continuing education that I didn't intend to spend. It was just a surprise opportunity that I took advantage of. But now I need to kind of think about that for the rest of the year when I think about what I want to spend my money on in that category. So it's a good thing for me to read right now and to really just kind of declutter some stuff. I acquired Atomic Habits last February by James Clear. I'm going to pick this back up. What's funny is right after I did that filming and made the intention of looking at this again more carefully, I was in a team meeting with the woman who sent this to me, and she said, I'm going to be looking at Atomic Habits again this year and really being diligent about focusing on those new habits that I want to create. And I thought, oh, that's funny because I just filmed this video about how I should take a look at this again myself. So I am going to do that. I don't know that I will finish it in February. I'm giving myself permission to put it on the TBR and to take it back up and to finish it whenever I'm ready to finish it. I want to take nice time around this to really start to implement these lessons, journal about them, think about them. He has some worksheets on his website. So I'm going to be really diligent and intentional about it and not rushing through it to complete it just to check it off the list. So I'm going to start it in February, but I'm not going to worry about finishing it by the end of the month. I'm also going to read The Turn of the Screw this year by Henry James. And I think we'll finish it this month. My daughter Megan and I are buddy reading it. It's very short, 69 pages. It's very dense. It's very slow going. It needs my entire attention and my whole brain to process the language from the late 1800s. It was published in October of 1898. So this is definitely not everyday English language for today. And I don't have a problem with classic literature. What I find happens is I have to get my brain into that. And it happens pretty quickly, but I have to read it for a while to get back into that way of comprehending the language, the references, the style of writing. So it takes a bit. So we're about 13 to 15 pages in so far, not real far along. We need to set some goals and make sure that we understand how much we're going to read. And we've been a little bit lazy about it so far, but it's early in the month, so I think it'll be okay. But one of the reasons we want to read it is because we loved The Turn of the Key last year, both of us, and we both loved The Haunting of Hill House. And both of those are, The Haunting of Hill House, the adaptation, not the original book written by Shirley Jackson. So the Netflix adaptation of The Haunting of Hill House is reportedly, season 2 is based on The Turn of the Screw and a very similar story. The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware is also based on The Turn of the Screw. So far, I can see very clearly based on The Turn of the Screw. Nevertheless, this follows a nanny, a woman who takes on a job with a man who has 2 children, and he leaves her with the children. And the staff that have been living there have been taking care of the children for a while because they have not had a nanny. And so it's the story of her experience of caring for these children in this house. So as I suspect, as in Ruth Ware's novel, the house is a character in and of itself. So it's a great, scary read, I think. And we're both very happy to read it. We just need to be diligent about it. And I need to make sure I sit down and I'm in the right headspace, because it isn't a book that I'm going to fly through for sure. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyle, I think. Boyne? No, it might be Boyne, is a historical fiction novel, and it follows a young man whose name is Bruno, who's about 9 years old, and his father is a member of the Nazi party and regime, and they live outside of a concentration camp. The author does mention in some interviews or some comments somewhere I've heard that he does address the fact that, yes, this is a very fantastical kind of plot, because that wouldn't ever happen. And he thought it made for a great story. So he never based that particular bit on true factual information. But the story is about Bruno discovering a boy that is living in the concentration camp, and of course is wearing striped pajamas. And it's the story of how that relationship or that awareness unfolds. I'm not really sure if the children end up with a relationship per se, or I tried not to listen to a lot about it because I wanted to be surprised. Is on my 100 books bucket list poster, which is on my door. And that was another one of my 2020 goals, is to read through some of those. And I think that'd be a good read. And I know Sarah Swan and somebody else are doing a readathon for the month of February. And while I don't have a lot of historical fiction on my list, because I wasn't planning on reading a lot of historical fiction in February, I did think I could throw that one in, and I can listen to it. I do have access to an ebook version of it, so that should be a nice way of being able to read it. And if I can't do that, it is available at my library, so I can just pop up the street and check it out when I'm ready to begin. So that's a lot of books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 books on that TBR. But again, really probably only 8 that I'm going to focus on diligently, and give myself the grace to just read as many as I can. That seems like a lot, and it's probably not likely that I'll finish all of them. Thanks for joining me. I'd love to know what is on your list of books to read in February. Are you reading romances? Are you reading historical fiction? Are you just reading whatever your mood makes you curious about? I'd love to hear what it is. And of course, I'd also love to hear if you've read any of these that are on my list. I appreciate you all so very much. I hope you have a great month of reading and a happy reading day today. Bye.